All right, guys. Well, there doesn't seem to be a major topic arising for us, or not an immediate topic arising for us out of our conversations on Sunday evening. So I want to introduce a larger one that has to do with the way we are dealing with issues in society broadly around information and disinformation, and people intentionally proposing a perspective on what's happening in the world that they know is false. How do we deal with that? And how do we know whether the perspective that we are putting out is in fact accurate? So I want to suggest to you that it's important that we understand what the problem is. It was an interesting conversation that Albert Einstein had with someone who asked about his problem-solving technique, and he said, "Well, if I had an hour to figure out try to solve some kind of problem, I'd spend the first 50 minutes of it defining what the problem is." I can't tell you how many times I run into people in situations where they experience their life as being stuck in a kind of intractable problem. And what becomes clear as we look at that problem is that, in fact, the problem is they're defining the problem in such a way that they can't solve it. So we lose sight of the fact that there are multiple ways of defining a problem. And so it's like somebody said, there are lots of different, all maps are valid and some of them are helpful. There are some ways of looking at things that actually help us to address the issue, to help us figure out what it is we need to do. And just to remember here that the fundamental function of a map is to say, this is where I am, this is where I might be, this is what I need to do to get there. So we want to be able to function in such a way that we have really good maps, the best possible maps. And a part of what we need our maps to do is to expose for us, or to invite us to be aware of the whole thing, because we tend to only see what we look for, what we have seen before, and that's how brains are managed to remain efficient. I'm going to look for what I've seen before. And if it's what it used to be, then I don't need to keep looking. When there's a problem, it's because there's something relevant that I'm not seeing. So I want to discover what that is. So I'm going to begin here kind of over the next few weeks. What I have in mind now is a kind of a series on looking at what are the things that we can include in our cognitive maps, such that we can make them as robust as possible. We're going to take into account all of the relevant data, and to recognize that very often, well, no, always, there are multiple things happening at the same time, and I can't pay attention to all of them. So which ones am I going to pay attention to? So the first thing that I just want to kind of throw out there, and maybe we can talk about this Sunday evening if you want, is that the thing that we are most aware of is what's happening for me as a person in a material context. What's happening in the real world means what's happening in the physical world, in the material world, in which I am not you. I am separate from you. We also live in a relational world. And in the interpersonal realm, what is real are the kinds of relationships that we structure with each other. Is language real? Well, it is, because it's how we connect with each other, but it's not a thing. It is a process. The law, culture, habit. There's all kinds of things that are kind of structural loops in the way we connect with others that are very much real, very powerful. And we can see because they impact the material world. But it's a different level of reality. It's the interpersonal, not the material world. There's also the inner world. What's going on inside of me? What are my feelings? What are my sensations, thoughts, emotions, wishes? And what's arising within me, we largely say in our world, it's in our culture broadly, is that, don't pay attention to that. But as we pay attention to it, we discover that it is immensely important for us to attend to. And there's the transpersonal, or the spiritual. That is the things that are universal, that which exists everywhere for everyone all the time. And that universality of being is the transpersonal. So we've got the transpersonal, the universality of all being. We've got the intrapersonal, which is happening what's inside of me that nobody else knows about until I articulate it. We have the interpersonal, which is the relational stuff and the culture and the institutions that we as humans form with each other. And the material or the personal realm in which we experience ourselves as separate from the world, in relationship with the world, interpersonally, relationally, with an interior, what's happening inside of me, which is ultimately connected with all being. Okay, so I want to just, are you aware of those various realms and when and how do you get connected to that? So let's talk about that when we get together Sunday evening. Hope to see you.